All right, welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. As we've been saying that today we celebrate Africa Day. The day, of course, was established 55 years ago by the then Organization of African Unity, which is now the African Union. It represents the continent's quest for unity, independence, emancipation and liberation from colonial powers. With the buzz lines such as Africa is on the rise, we chat about some of the viable business spaces and, of course, potential on the continent. Author of Africa is Open for Business, Victor Kgomoeswana, joins us now to take this discussion further. Victor, good morning to you. Happy Africa Day.
Happy Africa Day. Good morning, Palace.
Thank you so much for coming through. Now, let's just start by getting your definition of Africa, what makes Africa to you, and, of course, what is viable about this beautiful continent of ours.
What is viable about the continent is really more than anything else the potential and the progress it has demonstrated over the past, I would say, 20 years. Demonstrating in terms of getting a sense of what needs to be done, what needs to be stopped. For example, big men of Africa who want to rule forever. You saw last year alone 2 of them going out. The Angolan president, former president, Zimbabwe president, because people are beginning to show an awareness that their fate is in their own hands rather than in the hands of the powerful. More peace, younger president. You remember George Weah, 51, became president of Liberia after 3 attempts, by the way. We got to emphasize that. So there are out there leaders who are showing an awareness that Africa has a lot more to offer, and they owe it to their people rather than to their self-interest. Who can forget Sani Abacha, $700 million being returned from the Swiss banks that he had stashed it away during his reign. So although there are still problems, countries like Burundi, where you saw a president extending the term, wanting to stay in office after there was popular revolt against that. You have the DRC, where except Ebola, you have a situation where you never know if elections are going to happen anytime soon after they've been postponed for years. So there are still problems, but if you look at where we were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, there's a marked improvement. Definitely.
But what do African countries need to do to change the challenges that you're talking about and the problems that we're still facing? I mean, the issue of leaders who don't want to leave their seats is a problem on its own.
Active citizenship. No leader is going to, no power-hungry despot is going to walk away from power that comes with so many benefits. So it's active citizenship. It's people understanding that they have rights, they have responsibilities to take charge of their own destiny. And I don't want to blame victims, because in some cases people just don't have the means to do that. But we have to understand it. But also African countries have to work together. Remember, the borders of Africa are not of our own making. They were created at the Berlin Conference. So often there are some countries that are way too small to matter on their own, and the best way is to regionally integrate. And lastly, I would say, take charge of the economic destiny of your people to make sure it benefits the majority. And that comes with beneficiation of the abundant resources we have. It comes with making sure governance is in place and is enforced, and it's making sure that you facilitate that entrepreneurship and intra-Africa trade.
Let's talk about the resources, what we have to offer as the African continent. The issue of oil, the oil prospects, those are huge, of course. And it is said that if you add the new countries with the traditional players like your Nigeria and Angola, Africa could actually soon emerge as the globe's next big oil and gas energy player. Talk to us about that. Are we anywhere near that?
Africa could be the world's biggest everything, all right? The River Congo could power the entire continent. And we haven't even mentioned the River Nile, which is already generating so much electricity from Ethiopia. Oil, you're talking about oil. I can talk about gold, diamonds, and modern minerals that go into the making of cell phones and electronic equipment. Agriculture, the land mass of Africa could feed the entire world, because the climate favors agriculture.
Which is not the case. We're spending what? $30 billion in importing food in the African continent. Why are we not able to produce?
And shame on us. Shame on us. There's no other way to put it. If we have so much good climate, the temperature and the rainfall figures that would make us plow just about anything. And in countries that haven't even started being agricultural, again, I'll go back to the DRC.
But what's the problem? Why do you believe Africa is spending so much money on food import instead of producing our own food?
It's leadership, a failure to appreciate your real worth. Remember, we mustn't undermine the power of colonialism. When you colonize people, you teach them that they are worth nothing, and you beat them until they accept
So
it.
it's
So
psychological.
Africans have been beaten to accept that they are not worth anything, that even those that are amongst us that are showing us that we are worth more are getting suppressed. Now, I'm not blaming everything on the past. I'm just saying let's be aware of that. So leadership out of that, courageous leaders who can show us possibilities by doing, not just by talking. And there are many such leaders already, I must add.
All right, let's talk about the 2063 agenda.
Yeah.
Of course, this is a strategic framework for socio-economic transformation for our African continent for the next, 50 years?
Yes.
How possible is that if we look at initiatives like your Cape to Cairo highways, for example?
Well, Cape to Cairo Highway is just a mere infrastructure project. You can build any infrastructure you want. We don't even need to borrow from anybody, by the way, I must add. But don't forget gender emancipation. Women of Africa are still among the most depressed and most suppressed. So it's lots of things, but also getting into the digital revolution, making sure that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, as we say, so that we get on into the Internet of Things. Everything is possible, as I say, but every time we talk about projects like the Cape to Cairo, we have to emphasize regional economic integration. That road means going through SADC, it goes through COMESA, it goes through East African Community. These are way too many regional economic blocks. They must start working together. And that's why I'm excited that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement was signed. It would soon be coming into action as soon as I think about 21 members sign it. And we saw Namibia last week saying they will go along with it. So we need that regional economic integration, which means unify our objectives, agree that we have a common destiny, but most of all, pool our resources, both human and otherwise, to work towards that common goal and tenaciously hold ourselves accountable for the results and the progress.
But it looks like everything goes back to the leadership of the continent.
And active citizenship. We can't emphasize that enough. We've got the Internet of Things, the technology to share information. So we no longer have to be misled and hoodwinked by powerful people, because we can share information about what is happening, hold them accountable. Before the internet, before the social media, it would have been very difficult to share the information. So I'm saying Africans, especially the young people who are in the majority, should use what they have at their disposal.
Are they even interested in their continent?
African.
The young people, the African.
They are interested. They're just not interested in the politics that we keep talking about so much. They are trying to make a living. They are trying to build businesses. And if you look at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, which takes 1,000 entrepreneurs every year from 52 countries and tries to build them to the next level, you will know there are young Africans out there who are innovating, who are doing a lot more exciting stuff than what we keep trying to get them to talk about.
I can talk the whole day, but thank you so much for coming through, and have a beautiful Africa Day.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Victor Kgomoeswana, the author of Africa is Open for Business, of course, chatting to us about some of the viable business spaces and the potential that the African continent has. We're taking a quick break.